Here we go. Happy Thursday. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report, and we're live right here on Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. Hope everybody out there is having a great September 12th, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in. I appreciate all of the real ones for making today's show a part of your day. A lot to get to here on the show. Producer Chip on the ones and twos, and we have the faithful rocking with us from every pocket of America and worldwide. And, of course, we have another Christian McCaffrey injury update. Back on the practice field today in the lead up to Sunday's game against the Minnesota Vikings. So naturally, we segue to this poll question right here. And I want to hear from everybody watching the show right now down in the comment section. Should Christian McCaffrey play on Sunday? Type P for play, S for sit. Let me know. As you venture in here, please also make sure you hit that thumbs up icon and you like the video. Big Hurt said, sit. Tyrick, play him. The Bowtie Chaplain, he needs to rest. Ty Man the Buckeye, play him. Elvin Santiago, sit. Alicia, sit. Russell Hill, sit. Kevin Stokes, play. So it's a combination of both responses here. I also have a pinned poll question that is in the chat. Do the Vikings worry you? Considering San Francisco has not beaten Minnesota in Minneapolis since 1992. 7 straight losses for the Niners in Minnesota. 82% of the people saying no, so continue to get your votes in there. We do have 2 sponsors that we want to tell you about right off the rip. The first one is Prize Picks. Over 5 million active members. If you want to play daily fantasy sports, Prize Picks is the only app that you should be using. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. You pick 2 or more players. You choose more or less on the projected stats, and you can win big-time money. So be sure to download the Prize Picks app. Head to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Sign up today. You get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. It makes game days so much more fun when you get in on the action with Prize Picks. And throughout this week, we have also welcomed a brand new sponsor here on the show, our good friends at PXG. Also making today's 49ers Report live possible. Take the PXG Irons Challenge. Go to a facility. There are hundreds nationwide, and you can get the best club fitting experience. You're going to get set up on a golf simulator. One of the PXG employees will be looking at your swing, giving you some feedback, but then the golf simulator is able to give you some incredible data tracking your swing, and they'll make adjustments to get you set up with the best irons. And I'll tell you what, I have the PXG Black Ops irons. They've dramatically improved my game. I just had to give them a try. You should as well. So set up your club fitting today at pxg.com. And we also have another great deal for the people here watching today's Niners Report. If you take the PXG Irons Challenge, it's going to be a lot of fun. And if the new Black Ops irons don't outperform your current irons by delivering either more distance or better accuracy during your fitting, you will get a $100 MasterCard rewards card. Hurry, this offer ends October 7th, so book your fitting today at pxg.com. That is pxg.com. So there is plenty to get into here live on the San Francisco 49ers Report. We have 170 people watching live right now, 39 likes. Please make sure you hit that thumbs up icon and you like the video. The more likes that we get, it certainly helps the algorithm and allows people to find the stream. So hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. And there are 2 segments that I want to get to. If we want to extend the show and we want to chop it up with some people, we can obviously do that after we get done with our content. If we get $100 in Super Chats, I will do another beer boot in a Fred Warner jersey. And if we get some big-time Super Chats, maybe we think about doing a Kegs and Eggs on Sunday because it is an early game for San Francisco. So plenty to get to here on the show. If you're ready to talk some Niners, hit that thumbs up icon, like the video right now. And with that, let's officially start the show right here on the Niners Report. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. Chase Senior here with you. No matter where you are, how you're tuned in, I appreciate you for making today's show a part of your day. And what we're going to get into up on the channel, I already put up a 20-minute preview of Niners Vikings on Sunday, NFL Week 2. I think it's one of the top games on the calendar. But on today's show, a different spin for this matchup. I'm going to explain how San Francisco can destroy the Minnesota Vikings and work on some of the weaknesses that we saw on tape from their loss last year in Minneapolis. And my take going into this game, it's one of the top matchups in Week 2, and you might hear that and say, well, Chase, Sam Darnold is the Vikings quarterback. How are you going to say that? For people who love ball, this is a fascinating matchup for a couple of reasons that we're going to outline here on today's San Francisco 49ers Report. And let's begin with the offensive versus defensive matchup. Niners offense, Vikings defense. Kyle Shanahan, head coach for San Francisco, is one of the top offensive minds in football. And when you go to the other sideline for Minnesota under head coach Kevin O'Connell, I thought he made a great hire in bringing in Brian Flores as the team's defensive coordinator when Kevin O'Connell took the job a few years ago. And obviously Brian Flores, his head coaching stint with the Miami Dolphins didn't work out. Well, that became a little bit of a controversy a couple of weeks ago, and Tua Tagovailoa ripped Brian Flores and said, when you come into work every single day and you're being told that you suck, it's hard to play well. Kind of an old school, new school approach. Brian Flores is of the Bill Belichick tree. What's interesting is that when he was the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, they actually won a lot of football games. Defense is his specialty. So too was Bill Belichick's specialty when he was a head coach, and you can see some of the wrinkles of the Belichick defensive mind being implemented in the approach to defense for defensive coordinator Brian Flores. And this game is for you on Sunday if you are a football nerd who loves diving in to the X's and O's. A look back at last year's tilt between the Niners and Minnesota. Of course, both teams have changed from last year, but Kyle Shanahan is still calling plays and designing the offense for the Niners, and Brian Flores is doing the same for the Minnesota Vikings on the defensive side of the football. The Niners lost that game 22-17, and they had a lot of self-inflicted wounds throughout that ball game. On the first drive, after Kirk Cousins got picked off on a great play by Charvarius Mooney-Ward, Christian McCaffrey fumbled as the Niners were matriculating downfield at the Vikings' 15-yard line. It took points off of the scoreboard for the Niners. And then later, Jake Moody missed a field goal in prime time. And then before half, former Niners defensive coordinator Steve Wilks called an all-out blitz. Very bold choice when there was barely any time left, no safety help, and the Vikings were able to take advantage. Kirk Cousins noticed that right away, and he threw this pass to Jordan Addison, which was almost picked off by Mooney-Ward. It kind of went through his hands, into the hands of Jordan Addison. He takes it to the crib for 60 yards, and Vikings fans were going wild. Momentum shift toward Minnesota. In that game, I thought Purdy struggled really for the second time as a pro. The first time being the week prior, bad weather against the Cleveland Browns, and a great defensive coordinator in Jim Schwartz, who's always had Kyle Shanahan's number. Purdy in this game against Minnesota last year threw 2 interceptions. Niners defense wasn't great. Kirk Cousins was great. 35 of 45 for 378 yards. Of note for San Francisco last year, as compared to this Week 2 matchup here in 2024, the Niners last year did not have Deebo Samuel, who the week prior got hurt early against the Cleveland Browns. And then Trent Williams did not play against Minnesota either because he was injured. And the last point here on your screen, bottom right, Brian Flores put on a masterclass, and we'll dive into that coming up here just around the corner. When you break down and you study Kyle Shanahan's offense, there are a lot of complexities, there's a lot of creativity, and it's a fun one to watch. And there's a reason why his offensive system, the fingerprints of it, are all across the NFL. Mike McDaniel to Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, Bobby Slowick in Houston, etc., etc. It features choreographed pre-snap motion, but with that pre-snap motion which you think of in a finesse way because there's a lot of speed and a lot of movement, Kyle Shanahan does a great job of blending physicality with all of the wrinkles and window dressing. There is technique behind Kyle Shanahan's offense. They play with a lot of force, and there is a lot of creative design behind his plays. It forces the defense to look one way, and then the play goes another, or there's a motion man going one way, and you think maybe the offense is going to fake you out, but then they go toward that motion. There are so many beautiful little wrinkles within this offense, and a bunch of moving parts and misdirection causes that confusion for the defense. And when it comes down to Kyle Shanahan's play designing, what's insane is that he took the job after being the Falcons offensive coordinator in 2017 for San Francisco. That was a rebuilding year. And from 2018 through 2023, the Niners have finished number one each year in yards after the catch per completion. We've all heard the term Yak Kings for Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Aiyuk, Jauan Jennings, and others. But it's Kyle Shanahan who does such a great job of designing plays that allows these weapons to pick up yards after the catch because they catch the football in space. And that's why Brock Purdy's been able to thrive within this offense, because he gets the ball out on time, accurately, in rhythm, knows where to go with the football, goes the right place with the football, leading to a lot of these explosive plays. So for the Niners since 2018 to literally every year be number one in yards after catch per completion, it speaks to the brilliance of head coach Kyle Shanahan. And the Niners offense in 2023, we finally saw what it could become when you added a deep threat to it, as Brandon Aiyuk really emerged as one of the top deep threat options in the NFL. San Francisco also blended that with a run-heavy approach. And since the Christian McCaffrey trade, the Niners actually throw the football at the 32nd rate in the NFL. And when you are running the ball with a success rate like the Niners did against the New York Jets in Week 1, why would you go away from that approach? Last year, the Niners averaged nearly 30 points per game. They were the number one overall offense in the National Football League. They were also number one in more analytical categories like efficiency and explosiveness. Aiyuk, Kittle, McCaffrey, and Trent Williams, all pros last year in 2023 for this Niners club. But the Minnesota Vikings last year had no issues against this Niners offense when they met at US Bank Stadium in downtown Minneapolis. The 49ers in that ball game averaged 1.53 yards after contact per rush against Minnesota. That was the Niners' lowest mark of the 2023 season, according to True Media. Now, how did the Minnesota Vikings find so much success against San Francisco? What Brian Flores did was very creative from a defensive standpoint, and he can get creative with his defensive play calling like Shanahan can on the other side of the football. What Brian Flores did was he deployed a lot of six-man fronts, and he played three defensive tackles in stacking the box, and Minnesota clogged a lot of the interior gaps. And here's an example of that where you see Minnesota with their defensive line really stacking the line of scrimmage, and there you see it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 guys in the box, and then on the Niners side of the football, you see them going a little bit heavy with George Kittle to the right of Colton McKivitz, and an I-formation set with Kyle Juszczyk and Christian McCaffrey. And Christian McCaffrey in that game really struggled to get going. As part of this segment, and what we're going to get to next, how can the Niners exploit this? And I have some other keys to the game coming up for how San Francisco can fix those issues and dominate Minnesota and further exploit this Vikings team and bother Sam Darnold. All of that is coming up next. First, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you want Niners coverage every single day, I have you covered right here on the show. Anytime I'm in front of the camera, on the microphone, right here on the Niners Report, I want to give you coverage that is informative, insightful, entertaining, thought-provoking, that involves you. And hopefully so far with this show, I've been able to check those boxes. Let's check the box of paying our bills. And let's give a shout out to today's sponsor, Prize Picks, for making today's Niners Report possible. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. With over 5 million active members, it is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you have to do, the game is very easy, is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become a part of the Prize Picks community today. There's a great deal that we also want to tell you about. You sign up today, you get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Our selections that we like going into Sunday, there is also another special. Caleb Williams, more than a half passing yard every week of September. That's an automatic win. Brock Purdy, more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. I think he throws for at least 2. And then Sam Darnold, let's go with less than 227.5 passing yards against this Niners defense, which played very well against the likes of Aaron Rodgers. So pick more, pick less, pick Prize Picks today, download the app, create an account, use that code CLNS. And another reminder for that deal that we told you about just moments ago, you sign up today, you get $50 instantly when you play $5. Prize Picks, run your game. As far as the Niners game plan, going into Sunday against Minnesota. Last year in this game, as I mentioned, San Francisco didn't have Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams, and that went a long way in the Niners struggling. Now, they still had plenty of talent to win that game against an inferior opponent in the Minnesota Vikings, and they still had opportunities to win that game even without Deebo and Trent Williams. But those are 2 all-pro players, and you think about how the Niners incorporate Deebo and what the Vikings do well and some of the things that we've talked about here on the program, having Deebo Samuel allows you to beat some of the things that the Vikings like to do. And then when the Vikings have 6 men in the box and 3 defensive tackles, having Trent Williams goes a long way in helping this offense out as far as picking up yards and scoring touchdowns, being efficient, and stopping what the Vikings are doing well on the defensive side of the football. In this game, Minnesota can try to stack the box, and I bet you that they're going to do that. Brian Flores was even asked about that this week, where he was asked, hey, since your game plan worked out so well against the Niners last year, are we going to see similar elements this year? And he said, yeah, of course, we could do some of the same things. But how about these numbers from week 1? The New York Jets stacked the box, and they tried to stop and hone in on the Niners rushing attack. They put 8 men in the box, and Jordan Mason, among all running backs in the National Football League in week 1, faced the most 8-man boxes in the NFL. 50% of the time, he was going up against an 8-man box. That was about 5% more than the next best running back, or next closest running back, in Gus Edwards. So Minnesota could try to stack the box, but because Jordan Mason runs with such decisiveness and physicality, and he runs with that nasty streak in a downhill manner, he can run through some of those defenders regardless of how many players are in the box. And then another key here for Minnesota having 6 men along the line of scrimmage is Brock Purdy either under center or in the shotgun, taking the snap and pulling the trigger quickly on some quick hitting routes on the outside. And so if the Vikings are going to go with 6 men at the line of scrimmage and San Francisco then spreads the ball out and you're throwing some of those quick hitters and then you have some offensive linemen pulling to whatever side you're throwing the football to, and you get some good blocks from your other wide receiver counterparts or a George Kittle, that allows San Francisco to spread the field, keep the defense honest, and then pick up some chunk plays on the outside. You can also run some 3-man or 3-step drops for Brock Purdy, just finding ways to negate what the Vikings are trying to do. And we've talked a lot about the Niners offense going up against the Vikings defense throughout the show here today. Let's flip that. And now let's talk about the Niners defensive line going up against the Vikings offensive line. This is an area in which San Francisco can exploit the mismatch on Sunday and really take over the game, especially clogging up the vision line and muddying up the pocket for former Niners backup quarterback Sam Darnold. San Francisco's defensive line feasted against the New York Jets, and the Minnesota Vikings have a lot of holes along the interior of the offensive line. And as you look at the Niners' defensive line depth chart, Nick Bosa was active against New York. Leonard Floyd had a 21% pass rush win rate on 20 pass rushing snaps. He was so efficient in that game. But on Sunday, I want you to watch Javon Hargrave and Malik Collins operating at defensive tackle because they can take over this game. Why is that? This Vikings offensive line on the interior has a lot of holes. And I'm talking here specifically about center Garrett Bradbury and right guard Ed Ingram. Ed Ingram is the weak link on this Vikings offensive line. He had a 9.3 pass blocking grade against the New York Giants. Dexter Lawrence owned him in the season opener. And Dexter Lawrence was one of the few bright spots for a Giants team that looked horrendous on the offensive side of the football. But defensively, Dexter Lawrence, one of the top defensive tackles in the game, performed very well. And that 9.3 pass blocking grade is about as bad as it gets on a scale of 0 to 100. Ingram allowed 1 sack and an NFL worst 6 pressures in that game against New York. And of the 69 guards who saw the field in week 1 across the National Football League, Ingram was rated last. And when you turn on the tape from what the Niners defensive line was able to do against the Jets offensive line on Monday Night Football, Malik Collins was all over the place and he was disruptive. And Javon Hargrave is one of the better pass rushing defensive tackles in the NFL, coming off a down year when he still had 7 sacks. Garrett Bradbury, on the other hand, he earned an offensive grade of 44.8 against the New York Giants. He, too, was one of the lowest graded offensive linemen in week 1. So in this game for San Francisco, it is time for Malik Collins and Javon Hargrave to eat up. And it's different for a quarterback when there's pressure coming off the edge, because sometimes you can see that with your peripheral and you can sense it. If you're able to generate a pass rush and muddy up the pocket by bursting through the interior, the quarterback is going to feel uncomfortable right from the jump because there's really nowhere for him to move off of his spot to. And when you blurry the sight line for quarterbacks, it makes their job hard because they're not able to go through their progressions and survey the field, especially for a quarterback like Sam Darnold, who's been prone to throwing interceptions and turning the football over. And what I would also do if I was Nick Sorensen, run a lot of twists and stunts. Now, the Vikings this offseason made Christian Darrisaw one of the highest paid offensive tackles in the game. And he is one of the best offensive tackles in the game. But if you run some twists and stunts up front, where there's a lot of different direction going on with your defensive linemen, you can really match up nicely against this porous Vikings offensive line. And not only can Malik Collins and Javon Hargrave have a day, but it could open up some pass rushing lanes for Nick Bosa and Leonard Floyd. And how about the debut that Leonard Floyd had as a San Francisco 49er? He was second on the team in pressures with 4. He had the only sack of Aaron Rodgers for the Niners in that Monday Night Football game. And this is wild, right? He played only 20 pass rushing snaps against New York, and he had a pressure rate of 21.1%. So he was highly effective when he was on the field. And this is such a fun player to watch. Number 56, if you're not familiar. Last 4 years, 9+ sacks in each season. He's one of a handful of players to be able to accomplish that. He plays with a motor. He plays with speed, a relentless energy, twitch and bend off the edge. Really quality player, and probably the best edge rusher that Nick Bosa has had opposite of him since he came into the league with the Niners in 2019. If you fluster Sam Darnold, he is prone to turning the football over. And when you win the turnover battle in the National Football League, you win close to 80% of your games. That's how San Francisco can dominate Minnesota and move to 2-0. in the early portion of the 2024 season. So who you got in this game? SF for the Niners, MIN for the Minnesota Vikings. Get those predictions in. Let me know right now. And as always, thanks for supporting the movement here on the Niners Report. All right, good stuff, everybody. Thought that was a fun segment. Hope everybody agreed. Very informative is what I was aiming for there. Be the Truth, Native Dancer, Osvaldo Pisano, Rick Diaz, all a part of the recent commenter club. I did see a $5 super chat come in from the homie, Anthony! And Anthony, I'm so bummed that you weren't watching our watch party at the end after our postgame show, because we spun the wheel for our 49ers Report football, and you actually won it. But you weren't here to claim the prize. Tried to super chat. I'm here during the pregame raffle. Screen froze. Message on Messenger. Anthony, it's all right, man. We appreciate you for supporting the show. You almost won the Niners Report football, but it's all good. Thanks for supporting the program, as always. More people in the chat. I see Larry J. Cruz, Ty Man the Buckeye, Thomas B., Adolph Grimes, Johnny Dubs, and Julian Rost also back in the building. And then Be the Truth going SF as well. So a lot of people riding with the Niners to win this football game. Let's move forward here to segment number 2. We have another Christian McCaffrey injury update. We have other updates elsewhere on the Niners injury report and a Dre Greenlaw sighting at Niners practice today. So we're about to dive into that. Stay tuned for it. Roddy Cal saying, what's up, faithful? Chase and Chip. Go SF all day. Appreciate you, brother. We have $5 in super chats, by the way, for those of you just joining the show. If we get to 100, doing a beer boot in a Fred Warner jersey, and we'll do kegs and eggs. Have some beer and some eggs for an early game on Sunday if we get to $100 in super chats. In the meantime, segment number 2 coming up right now. Coming up here on today's San Francisco 49ers Report on this beautiful Thursday, September 12th, we have a new Christian McCaffrey injury update as he returned to the practice field on Thursday, on the field doing drills. We're also going to take a look elsewhere on the Niners injury report, and we finally have a Dre Greenlaw update and sighting from the SAP Performance Center as he was on the practice field as well for San Francisco. In what capacity? Stay tuned to find out. The enforcer, Dre Greenlaw, working his way back off that torn Achilles. Speaking of Achilles, that has been the buzzword of the week for the San Francisco 49ers. Are you worried about Christian McCaffrey's calf and Achilles issue? Let's hear from you down in the comment section. Y for yes or N for no. As for the latest on CMC, last week he was limited at practice. Then going into that game against the New York Jets, despite him saying that he thought he was going to play and all signs pointing to him playing, Ian Rappaport reporting that he was expected to play, he did not play against New York. I think a lot of that had to do with Christian McCaffrey taking himself off the practice field on Friday. Kyle Shanahan then said earlier this week, after the Niners pummeled the Jets, that McCaffrey is dealing with Achilles tendonitis. 2 words, Achilles tendonitis, you never want to hear for a player of this importance, of this greatness, who's coming off a masterful season in which he was the NFL Offensive Player of the Year, more than 2,000 all-purpose yards, but is a 28-year-old running back who led the league in touches last year. As of right now, the Niners are listing him as day-to-day, and we will find out more tomorrow on the Christian McCaffrey front when the Niners release their injury report in the lead-up to this Sunday game against Minnesota. Here's what McCaffrey said earlier this week, in case you missed it, on his injury, his mental process, and his approach this week. That's how I am every week. I'm not lying. I think as soon as a player says, maybe I will, maybe I won't play, that's not a good mentality to go into the week with if you're on the fence. For me, I'm ready to go. If you can't run on turf, you can't run on the field. If you can go, you can go. And Christian McCaffrey added, I'm approaching this game as if I'm playing on Sunday. And he was asked about the turf surface playing against the Vikings at their home field, US Bank Stadium. And he said, you can't worry about that. I'm not too worried about it. Now, all throughout this week, we've gotten a bunch of different messages. Christian McCaffrey saying, I'm approaching this week as if I'm going to play. But then you had Ian Rappaport saying it feels like a long shot for McCaffrey to play on Sunday against the Vikings. You had this from head coach Kyle Shanahan where he said the Achilles is tendonitis and that stuff comes and goes, and when it's acting up, it's something that you have to be very careful about. Christian's very diligent about that stuff, and if it was a playoff game, he made it very clear to me he believed that he could go. But when you hear that type of stuff and it's not a playoff game and it's week 1, especially when you're dealing with lower extremities, it was a tough decision for him to not play. But hearing all the words in the long run, it made it easy. Now, Albert Breer, who's an NFL insider for Sports Illustrated, said that if it were a playoff game, that Christian McCaffrey would be playing on Sunday against Minnesota. But it's not a playoff game. And that's why McCaffrey and the San Francisco 49ers have to exercise an abundance of caution with this injury. And let's go to my next point here. Christian McCaffrey is a special football player, and I admire his dedication to the game of football. You don't become a great player and the all-pro that he is without being extremely dedicated to the craft. His footwork as a running back and a wide receiver, it's uniquely special. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens by hopping in the lab and putting in hours and hours of work over the course of years. And Christian McCaffrey has a very regimented workout routine, and that includes a lot of specific quick twitch sprinting workouts. I've watched these videos on YouTube. It's fascinating stuff. And last year, when he won NFL Offensive Player of the Year, top 5 in MVP voting, more than 2,000 all-purpose yards, tied for first in touchdowns scored, and led the NFL in touches, he didn't want to come off the field. Kyle Shanahan even talked about how this was a battle between him and McCaffrey. And this is all because McCaffrey loves ball. So much respect for that. And going back to his youth, his dad, who was an all-pro and a Super Bowl champion under Kyle Shanahan's dad, Mike Shanahan, made him wear sweats on game days when he was in high school so that jeans or other pants wouldn't weigh his legs down. His dad would take him out of school early on game days to get IVs so that he wouldn't cramp. His dad would tell him not to squint because it wastes energy, and he would get grounded at the age of 8 if he was tackled by his jersey. Can you imagine that? This is a family that loves football, man, and I love it. It gets me fired up. His dad also told Christian to not yell at pep rallies because he would lose his voice, and it would take away from his energy. He wasn't allowed to drink sodas. His bedtime was 7:30. All that is extremely unique, and it's led to McCaffrey becoming one of the most special running backs in the history of football. But with all that being said, the Niners this offseason signed him to a contract extension through 2027. They gave him guaranteed money. They increased his average annual value. And you can't mess around with an Achilles injury, because if it goes bad, and if the worst possible outcome ends up being a reality, it's one of the worst injuries that a professional athlete could suffer, especially for a 28-year-old running back. The Niners know that. They have to exercise an abundance of caution here. And we just saw Jordan Mason in week 1 against the New York Jets pop off for nearly 150 rushing yards as he had a career night. This year for San Francisco is about winning the Super Bowl. It's not about winning a week 2 game against Minnesota. It's not about your fantasy team. It's about preserving Christian McCaffrey and having him healthy at the end of the year when he's playing his best football, and so that he's his freshest, so that the Niners can complete that quest for 6 and win a Lombardi trophy. And if you play him right now, you risk him further injuring that calf or Achilles. And by the way, last year, he had a calf injury as well, which Kyle Shanahan said this injury is very similar to that. I would sit McCaffrey for a little while longer. I would ride the coattails of Jordan Mason because this offense can still survive and it can still be a very productive unit. With that, I ask you this. Should Christian McCaffrey play on Sunday? That's another one of our poll questions here on the show. P for play or S for sit. Today's 49ers Report sponsored by our friends at PXG. For those of you who watch this show, it's obvious that I love talking football. When I'm not in front of the camera, not on the microphone, and I have some free time, which is very rare during the football season, I love to play golf. And I just got a new set of irons from PXG, and I'm telling you, it has completely changed my golf game. And my iron game, it's always a work in progress. So when I heard how the new PXG Black Ops irons can dramatically improve my game, I had to give them a try. I booked a fitting at a PXG location. I brought my current irons and took the PXG Irons Challenge. My fitting experience and the results of the challenge were incredible. They set you up in front of a golf simulator. They have a PXG employee who studies your swing, and then you look over at the monitor on the golf simulator, and you're able to track all of this data. Club head speed, exit velocity, the angle of your club. When the instructor is looking at your swing, he will give you feedback so that you can strike the ball better. And I couldn't believe, as compared to my old irons, how the ball was taking off of the club face with my new PXG irons. The velocity, the exit velocity, the carry, the ball flight, it was dramatically different. And this is why PXG has the best irons. And look at the video right now. You're able to see how that ball is just able to take off the club face with a really easy swing from yours truly. The new PXG Black Ops irons are game improvement missile launchers that feature X-Core 2 technology and a dual cavity design that combines with their high-strength, ultra-thin maraging steel club face to deliver superior forgiveness, absolutely explosive distance, and a feel that's softer than a baby bunny. The new Black Ops irons are incredibly easy to hit. They maximize your performance. You're going to have a lot more fun because your game will improve. And they're only $149.99 per club. That's a great price for a great golf iron. So take the PXG Irons Challenge, set up your fitting today. It's so much fun. And if the new Black Ops irons don't outperform your current irons by delivering either more distance or tighter dispersion, that means better accuracy during your fitting, you will get a $100 MasterCard rewards card. Hurry up though. This offer ends on October 7th. Book your fitting today at pxg.com. That's pxg.com. There are 200 plus locations to visit all across America. For those of you watching from the Bay Area, there's a location in the East Bay, Dublin, California. For those of you elsewhere in California, PXG Orange County, Huntington Beach, California location, and then Stone Tree Golf Club in Novato, California, and hundreds more nationally. When you set up that fitting and you arrive at the facility, tell them that the 49ers Report by Chat Sports and Chase Sr. sent you. Elsewhere on the Niners injury report here today, these players are turning to practice. Defensive end Yetur Gross-Matos, great sign. Linebacker D. Winters. Offensive lineman Aaron Banks. Wide receiver Jauan Jennings. And then, of course, Christian McCaffrey as well. Let's run through this list. I have some thoughts on all of these players. Yetur Gross-Matos injured his knee in the preseason finale against the Las Vegas Raiders. And it was a sprained knee for him. Didn't play week 1 against New York. He really offers a lot of value with his inside-outside flexibility, meaning he could play defensive end, he could pop to the interior, and he could play a little bit of defensive tackle. Crazy wingspan, really good athlete, an unbelievable athletic tester coming out of Penn State in the pre-draft process. The Niners have missed having that Arden Key, Charles Omenihu type of player who can play inside, outside. That's what Yetur Gross-Matos can do. Very good against the run and against the pass. That's what I think his potential is under Chris Kocurek, defensive line coach. Linebacker D. Winters. We know that the youngster can fly. Hasn't quite worked himself to a point where he's going to be able to unseat Devondre Campbell to be a starting linebacker. The 3 starting linebackers for the Niners in week 1, Fred Warner, Devondre Campbell, Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles. But linebacker D. Winters, at the very least, can help you on special teams. He'll put his hat on the ball carrier, and that speed really is fun to watch. He has to work on not being overly aggressive because sometimes he can over-pursue on plays. Offensive lineman Aaron Banks. He earned a 100 pass block efficiency grade against the Jets, but he did injure his calf, so Spencer Burford came in and actually played really well at left guard, even though Burford primarily has played right guard. But Aaron Banks coming back is good news. because he's probably the third best offensive lineman on this team behind Trent Williams and already the rookie Dominic Pooney. Wide receiver Jauan Jennings. He actually led the Niners in receiving yards against the Jets. 5 catches for 64 yards. Of course, as is just the normal status quo for Jauan Jennings, a lot of those catches came in really clutch situations. And what's crazy about JJ, you would think that his numbers are so much better than they are because of the significance of the plays that he's been able to make in the playoffs and in the regular season. Last year, he only had 19 catches for 265 yards. In week 1, he already had 5 catches for 64. He was the victim of a hip drop tackle as the NFL is looking to try to outlaw that play. And we finally have a Dre Greenlaw injury update. This is good news for San Francisco. He continues to work his way off a torn Achilles that he suffered in the Super Bowl on that freak sequence where it popped as he was coming onto the field after a punt. And he was right next to Fred Warner. Him and Fred Warner are best friends. Warner knew immediately that whatever had happened was very serious. Dre Greenlaw is the enforcer of this Niners defense, and once he went out, this Niners defense really didn't recover from a physicality standpoint, a production and play standpoint, and then the middle area of the field really started to open up. Early in the game, Dre Greenlaw was playing incredible football against Kansas City. That caused Patrick Mahomes to go to the sideline and say, we need to match their physicality, because right now we're not doing that. As for the update today, Dre Greenlaw wasn't in uniform. He wasn't wearing pads, but there's video of him working on hitting the sled at practice, where he's lining up like this, and then he's kind of showing off some explosion vertically and pushing off his lower extremities, which is good, because obviously that involves incorporating the Achilles to push that sled. His timetable to return is still unknown, so we're not sure when he's going to come back, but the fact that he's starting to ramp up at least a little bit and he's confident in that Achilles to at least push off of it, that's a good sign. Far away from playing the game of football, but a good sign nonetheless. And then Talanoa Hufanga, he continues to recover as well. Some chatter about him maybe being able to play on Sunday. I would say playing on Sunday is a little bit of a stretch. We covered a lot of ground here on the show. We always do that here on the Niners Report. So if you enjoyed today's show and you're not subscribed, be sure to hit that sub button right now. And as always, thank you so much for the support. Monkey Business, a $5 super chat. The Niners prove that McCaffrey is a tool in a massive toolbox full of effective tools. Let him heal up. We will just be just fine. I love the monkey emoji there, too. Good username. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, look, he's not the end-all, be-all. You know, having McCaffrey, it's not the make or break, significance that some people might think. I said going into week 1, look, the Niners can win this game without Christian McCaffrey. Is he special? Yes. Is he one of one? Yes. Is he the reigning NFL Offensive Player of the Year? Yes. But there's a reason why running backs have become expendable. There's a reason why outside a select few, like McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs, why running backs don't really get paid all that much. Because you can find good ones for cheap, and then you keep that revolving door going. The Niners have plenty of great players. It helped that their offensive line was spectacular. Brock Purdy was once again throwing dots. But it goes to show this Niners team is really loaded, and we've been saying over the last couple of years here on this show, Jordan Mason can ball, Jordan Mason can play. All right, let's do this. Last call for any Super Chats. It's been a wild day for us here at Chat Sports. A lot of content that we had to fit in a short amount of time. If you send in a Super Chat within 2 minutes, we'll hang out a little bit longer. If not, we will sign off, and we'll see you early on Sunday for those of you on the West Coast for our Niners Vikings watch party. Rick Nyer said, hold up, Chase. Keep it here. Here's a $10 super chat. Mason will hold it down until Christian McCaffrey is back. What is the profile picture there, Rick? It's looking good, man. I like it. Is it like a pilot's helmet? That's what it kind of looks like to me.
Yeah, I think so.
Good stuff, Rick. Yeah, and Mason, he's a dog, man. He's a dog. Rick Nyer is one of our Super Chat MVPers. I'm going to reset the Super Chat shot clock there. Rick, appreciate that. Lord Buddy Bear in the building. Lord Buddy Bear had a really funny joke that I overheard on a live show the other day.
Oh, the other day. Oh.
You remember what it was?
I don't know.
It's a Niner fighter pilot helmet. Very cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Are you a pilot, Rick? In your spare time? Lord Buddy Bear said something really funny. I think it was on Marshall's live stream. I forget what he said, but I was cracking up. I think it was like borderline inappropriate, but I'm a fan of comedy. I work in the ejection seats and the pilot's gear. Wow.
Whoa.
That's awesome, Rick. Ryan, Floyd, and Bosa now possibly adding Gross Matos in the mix. Their complete game records, as we've seen against the Jets. Floyd is quick. You think Darnold is going to have that uneasiness on Sunday? We talked about that at length a little bit earlier, and a portion of the segment that we were doing talked specifically about how the Niners defensive line can really fluster Sam Darnold. Completely agree, Ryan. You know ball. Lord Buddy Bear doesn't remember. That's because he has so many jokes. I think it was on yesterday's show. I'll have to ask Marshall. John Wallace, God bless everyone. Chip and Chase, Chat Sports, faithful family. See y'all Sunday morning. Salute, brother.
Yes,
now, what
sir.
do people on the West Coast do if they have to attend church? Is football church? I mean, a 10 a.m. kickoff is crazy. I was in Vegas a couple of weeks ago for the opening weekend of college football. I'll tell you what, man, the 9 a.m. kick, I mean, part of it was great. I got to bet on football and drink in the morning. Like, it's cool when you can watch football, bet on it, and take down a mimosa. At the same time, you can't really do anything Friday night, unless you just carry it over into Saturday, but I'm getting a little too old for that. 49ers Red Zone said, I watch football religiously. I love it. I love it. God forgives everybody, Chase, from Ryan. Especially when it comes down to Niner football, right? That's what it is. That's what it be. All right, we're going to sign off. Quick live show here today. In and out, but some really good coverage here on the show. Hope you all enjoyed it. We will see you on Sunday. We have a Jerry Rice autographed jersey that will be our Super Chat MVP item. We are going to have another 49ers Report football item to raffle away as well. Going to be a lot of fun. For Chip, I'm Chase. For the faithful, we out. See ya.